All right, all you positive heads. On this week's Soul Share episode, I'm very excited to have Guy Lawrence here with me on the show. Guy is an entrepreneur and host of the Let It In podcast, where he, similar to this show, bridges science and spirituality. Yo, Guy, welcome to the show, my friend.
Brandon, good to see you again.
Yeah, man.
Off air. It's so nice to be on the other side of the mic for a change.
I know. I had the pleasure of recording with you on your podcast very recently, and here we are. So thank you for returning the favor.
No, you're very welcome. I'm curious to see what comes out of my mouth, because when on the other side, I have no idea. So brace yourself.
So, Guy, I'd love to start off with my cliche opening question, which is this. You're in an elevator. The woman next to you looks over, says, "What's your passion?" You have 10 floors to answer. What do you say?
Oh, wow. Two things spring to mind. My passion is definitely my children and family. That's big one, especially having a 10-week-old son just come into
wow, 10 weeks?
10 weeks, yeah.
Wow, yeah. So, congratulations. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. Somebody that was terrified of children has now got their own. I just can't stop staring at them and being with them. It's incredible. So I'd say that's the first thing that comes to mind. But also, my passion is opening people's hearts. Nothing excites me more when I can support someone on their inward journey and they realize there's more to the game of life than maybe what they've perceived. So when I, like, even when my heart opened for the first time and I really felt it, and it wasn't just some metaphorical, nice visualization kind of thing, but it was a very tangible, visceral, experiential thing. It was like, wow, what else don't I know? And so they would be definitely my greatest passions. And it's taken me a long time to get here, but I feel very blessed in life at the moment and on purpose, which is incredible.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, that's quite the passion. What a child who's a bit older at this point. Enjoy every moment, because it happens. I mean, so quick, and next thing you know, they're looking around and grown up. That's what's happened to me. I mean, I had my child really young and my son really young, and I can't believe I have an adult essentially, now. So that 10 weeks to adulthood, it's much different than us experiencing it on our end as a kid growing up. It seems like forever, but when you're the adult watching them, it's like nothing. It's a blink. So yeah, congrats, buddy.
Absolutely.
Well,
thank you.
Yeah, if you would share whatever feels relevant to share about your backstory. I always love for, the listeners to have as much context as possible regards to that.
Okay. My backstory. Yeah. Well, as you can tell, I have an accent. I'm from Wales, the valleys of Wales. And I think what's relevant is that I was born into a very challenging culture, a very challenging place and time in the valleys of Wales. It was during a recession. There was very, I guess, lack of opportunity around. And straight away, I don't know if you've been to Wales or anything, but it's very rugby orientated and very alcohol orientated. Mm-hmm. There's a huge drinking culture there. Gotcha. And being born into a tiny little village in the valleys, I was always questioning everything. Well, why are we doing this? Why do we go to work if we're really unhappy? Like, there was a lot of struggle, and nobody seemed to have money. If a BMW, I always remember a BMW driving up the road, and all my mates were like, "Can I swear on this podcast?"
Sure.
Or, no, they were like, "Rich wanker, what the hell," kind of thing. What are you doing here? Like, there was this real push against, it was us against them kind of feeling. Yeah. And going through school, I was always questioning it. I came out of school at 15. I was working in a nightclub, just trying to come to terms with life, I think, and ask the questions. And rugby always kept me from straying fully. I happened to be pretty good at it. And if it wasn't for rugby, I think I would have been, I actually don't know, especially with what some of my mates were coming up to. So from a very young age, there was a very empty feeling within me, but no mentors or people to guide you into actually starting to deal with emotions, initiating me like a rite of passage into manhood, there just wasn't anything around. And by the time I was 20 years old, I just finished my plumbing, and I'd been playing rugby, and I had a girlfriend who wanted to get engaged and married, and I had this opportunity to work in this factory line. I always forget it, and I was thinking, what the hell am I doing? Is this how my life's going to turn out? So in a state of panic, I actually quit them all. I quit my rugby, I quit my girlfriend, I quit my job, and just left and went to London. And I had a plumbing job up there, and the misery continued. That was the that was the problem. And I saved up enough money, and I thought, I'm going to go to Australia. I'm going to come backpacking. And I left to come to Australia as backpacking, and I ended up spending 3 years here. Loved the place. Then I ended up spending more and more traveling through my 20s. I went through Asia. I had wonderful experiences, meeting amazing people. But quickly, what I was realizing, that wherever I went, I took myself with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was forever running away from having to slot back into society. And it was starting to become to the point where it felt heavy.
Yeah.
And as I was getting older, coming towards 30, I was like, what the hell am I going to do in my life? And I look back now and just go, what was I thinking? But at the time, it was so visceral
Right.
and real, and I couldn't see the wood through the trees. I really couldn't.
You thought 30 was old, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a whippersnapper now, right? It's
Yeah,
insane.
right.
But even looking back at just those moments for a point, it was interesting because I'll just go off on a tangent here for a second.
Mm-hmm.
But it was always like I always felt like it was my greatest burden. And I'll never forget at a retreat once, this beautiful old lady, she'd clearly been doing the work, inward work, for a long time. And she was like, oh, sweetie, that's your greatest gift. And I was like, how? I don't see it. And she's like, well, she said, you clearly got a fire in you that's not, that you're not settling for something that you don't want. All you need is to start listening to that and let it guide you.
Yeah.
And I was like, and everything just shifted in that moment. I was like, holy shit, I'd never thought of it like that.
Right.
So that I was the questions that I continued asking. It was, for me, I started looking at it was like reps in the gym. I was actually training for something. To, well, what is my purpose? What is my passion? And started asking bigger questions. And I got into the fitness industry here in Australia because my background with rugby and things like that. But what was fascinating, Brandon, and you might appreciate this, was that I started working with people with cancer. I was doing their weight training programs.
Wow.
And they really started to teach me the value of life.
Mm.
And what it was starting to do as well was highlight the food industry in general and how shite and processed it really is. And because when you start asking people, well, just remove this, remove that, you realize how much of one's diet is consistent of non-nourishing foods.
Right.
And at the same time, while all this was going on, I was trying to make money through stock trading. So I had it in my head. I didn't Tony Robbins, and I was like kind of on the path. I was listening to Eckhart Tolle, I was listening to Wayne Dyer, but there was still a belief system that I think that stemmed from my upbringing. Just thinking back to the BMW and that I'll make money, I'm going to become wealthy, and then I'm going to go and do what I love. Not do what you love, lean into what your passions are, and let the money flow.
Right.
So I kind of had this miswiring, and I spent 3 years living this double life, working at the university in the fitness area with people. I was supporting, then that's what led me into working with people with cancer. But at the same time, I was stock trading at night on the US market. And I would cycle to work every day. It was 11-kilometer cycle each way. And I used to come out, and there was this hill, right? This hill was so steep in the morning that I came out to, anyone that knows Sydney well, is Coogee, the South Coogee, and it's on this hilliest part. So, and I was earning just enough to feed myself, literally.
Wow.
Because I was trading, I'd borrowed money to trade, and I was like in this kind of, I don't know, so removed from reality in some respects. And I remember one day I was cycling back from the gym thinking surely something's going to change, because I could see my bank account, my trading account, just going down and down and down. And I was literally like God, I'm giving everything here. What aren't I seeing? What aren't I doing?
Right.
And it was a Saturday morning, mate. No one on the roads. And I come to the roundabout. I was probably 800 meters from home, maybe a kilometer from home, going round the roundabout. And this car came up the hill, and she didn't see me. And literally, I don't know. You don't have roundabouts in the USA, I don't think. Do you?
Some. Yeah, there are some.
Some.
I know
I
what you
have
mean.
I have an American business partner, and he's always whinging about roundabouts because he never knows what to drive them.
There's a roundabout within a couple miles of where I'm sitting right now. So they're
Yeah.
just
Okay.
not
Okay.
that common. But
They're
there
not
is
that
one
common.
in Venice Beach, California. There's one right down near the beach.
Amazing. Well, there was no one on this roundabout except me, and this lady didn't see me and literally just drove into me and T-bobbed me,
Wow.
and hit me, carried me about 15 meters up the road. I come rolling off my bike, and my bike went under the car, and I remember seeing the bike crunched, and I was battered and bruised, but I was okay. And she was screaming like lost it, and I remember comforting her, saying, "I'm okay. It's okay," because she thought she'd killed me.
Wow.
And the relevance of the story was my bike, which was my transport, which was everything, was gone. And I'm kind of struggling to breathe because I bruised all my ribs. An ambulance, somebody had phoned an ambulance to check me over, checked over, and ran me home. Now, what had happened was that 2 weeks prior, my girlfriend had just broken up with me as well, after dating for about 2 years out here. She was getting tired of my story and everything, so she quit. Then I get run over, and then I'm at home. This was the Sunday, and on the Monday morning, my ex-girlfriend rings me, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" She said, "I heard you got run over." I was like, "How did you know that?" And she said, "Well, the lady that ran you over is my client,"
Wow.
because she was a trainer. And I was
Wow.
like,
Wow.
are you kidding me?
Wow.
I couldn't believe it. And I was like, "Did you pay her or something? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
take me out altogether." And then,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Right. Right. That's funny.
and then this is exactly what happened. And then once she told me that, she said, "Oh, by the way, I couldn't live with it anymore. I'd actually been cheating on you for about the last 5 months
Wow.
and seeing someone else." And I remember at this point, I remember literally saying a couple of not very nice words and just hanging up the phone, basically.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like my melting pot moment, where I'm thinking, I've been pushing so hard, everything is roadblocking me here, and I really don't know what to do. And that was when I actually walked away from the trading. And the biggest lesson for me that learned at that point was the amount of energy it freed up to allow me to see clearly.
Yeah.
I'd spent too long, for some reason, there was a belief in there that this was the only way.
Yeah.
And it had to take a nudge from the universe to just say, "Hey,
Yeah.
wake up here. You've got," like, there was so many. I don't know if any of you tried stock trading on the day trade markets, but it's brutal, and there
Yeah.
was definitely a self development that required a detachment that it was teaching me, but I just didn't master it. I didn't have a big enough bank account, basically. But
Yeah.
anyway, so that was my melting point and crumbled from there. But then a mate of mine actually gave me the book, The 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. If you read that, was
I'm familiar with it, but I have not read it personally.
Yeah, it was a long time. It was all about that. And all of a sudden, I started to open up into the figuring out a way of looking at things differently. It was a great book. It was actually a great self-development book. But instantly, when I let go of the trading, it opened me up into seeing the disgust of the supplement industry and the protein powders and the things that they put in them. And I always remember saying, "Well, we can't give that to a cancer person. Like, it's certainly not going to support them."
Yeah.
And long story short, through different connections, there was a development of a natural protein powder. And this is wild to think how common this is now, but at the time, nobody was doing it. And I thought, why can't I be starting to sell that? So I actually made negotiations, and I still had no money at this point, but made negotiations within the university, and they supported me to see if I could sell it within their facilities. And the next thing I know, over about a 6 month period, I got all the staff on it, the students were using it, the people at the gym, and it was moving, and people were loving it.
Cool.
And then I partnered with someone, and we formed a company called 180 Nutrition. Still flying blind, but really starting to listen to my heart, because I was so pissed off at the food industry. It felt like I was adding real value to somebody's life, and it was what it represented was everything. And that's where my passions were really coming alive. And after 3.5 years, mate, it became pretty much a multi-million-dollar company, and it kind of took off.
Amazing.
Which was amazing, because all of a sudden, for the first time in my life, I had this contrast of no money to having money, and I could go out and buy a Ducati, because I used to visualize going down the road on my push bike as fast as I could.
She can get you to run you over in the Ducati.
Yeah, exactly. So I ended up buying a Duke and everything, but at the same time, that feeling that was with me in my teens and my 20s and everything, it was still there.
Yeah.
Like when I was honest with myself, I'd sit that night and like it's not happy. So I went and decided to do a shamanic journey with ayahuasca, and this was going back about 11 years ago now. And again, leaning into a story why this is relevant, I had a really traumatic time on mushrooms when I was about 13 years old. I was with older kids. I didn't know what I was doing. I took these mushrooms and it freaked me out. And as a 13-year-old kid, I hid in an abandoned house in a cellar for about 5 hours, curled up in a ball, just waiting for this thing to wear off. And I was hallucinating and seeing things. And it actually, I'd never touched a drug again after that. I was like, I am out. That is just wrong.
Yeah.
And so I'd lived with that trauma the whole time, and ayahuasca kept coming up in my peripheral. And by this time I was meditating and things and starting to piece pieces together. And I realized every time I thought about doing the shamanic journey, it terrified me because of the trauma from my childhood.
Sure.
And it was, again, my first lesson in really starting to learn that my body is stuck in the past, even though I'm in the present. Right. And those traumas coming through, and actually having to go through this initiation or stepping into the unknown, into a fear that felt very visceral for me.
Yeah.
Was huge. But I decided to go and do it anyway, because my life, I just wasn't happy. So I spent a month following all the protocols, stripping all the things out of my diet, and actually getting things like decluttering my life, which was huge in itself. That's when the transformation started to occur.
Yeah.
But I treated it with the utmost sacred way I could, and respect with that. Yeah. And I went, and I'll never forget, Brandon, when I went to go and drink this ayahuasca, I had a couple of mates with me. They were dear friends I used to live with. And I thought I was going to die. My whole body was convulsing. It was in that much fear.
Wow.
And I remember drinking it, thinking, well, fuck, I'm in.
What have I done?
What have I done? Yeah. And I laid down, and I always remember there was a couple of beautiful, the people that ran this thing were beautiful. And again, that was the first time a complete stranger showed me so much compassion and just care for somebody he never knew. And again, that was really special. These moments always stand out to me now when I facilitate and move forward.
Yeah.
And he just said, you got an opportunity to surrender here. And I remember laying there, opening my palms, softening my body, going and making a deal with the divine, ayahuasca, or whatever it is, to say, okay, I am all in. I am all in. I am 100% surrendering. I am not going to resist anything. And if I die tonight, so be it, but I am all in. That's how the level of where I got to, because my life was so miserable, really, even though from the outside it was perceived really well. And I just let go, mate. And in that letting go was, to this day, still sits with me, was such a huge lesson on what surrender actually means. Yeah. Not from a mental, but from an actionable, visceral feeling. Yeah. And I had this experience where I got taken around the universe. It was unbelievable. I had this most profound experience where I just completely opened up, and I evaporated. And it's really hard. I don't know if you've done plant-based medicine, mate, but
Yeah.
it's really hard to describe when you start to have these experiences. And it was very personal, but I come out of that going, oh my God, there is so much more to this reality. And I had this real feeling of, this is a direction I need to take somehow. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know how it's going to be.
Yeah.
But there's more. But then what it did, as I integrated that over the months coming, it was like, well, I took plant medicine and I had that experience. Is that really who we are? Or was that just the plants talking? You know,
Right.
you get back into 3D reality, you get back into all these things.
Start questioning,
And
hold on, what happened really?
yeah, exactly. But because I gave it space and I only did one journey, and I just think where I was as an individual, it really landed for me. So I was ferociously just starting to meditate. And I was starting to look at more books and esoteric things. I was podcasting by this point. It was funny because I had a podcast with my supplement company, but I was getting like Joe Dispenza and Greg Braden. This is going back like 10, 12 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
All these guys that had nothing to do with bloody protein supplements or the
Yeah,
nutritional
right.
industry. And I can see I'm going way off in the wrong direction here. Like someone's going to have to give soon. And I think about then a couple of years later, I ended up having a full spontaneous awakening because through the work I was doing. And what happened was basically energy shot out of the base of my spine from my first center. It's a kundalini. I later learned it was a kundalini awakening, but for anyone listening that's unsure, they say that the soul comes into the body when we're about 49 days in the womb, and then we use all this energy for growth. And as we start to grow from a young child, that energy then starts to lay dormant, and it collects coils at the base of the spine like a snake. And it's a feminine energy, and we can use it to arouse that energy back up, and it's very cleansing. So if you start to think about if information is being held within the energetic field, that trauma, like where is it? Is it in my body? Is it my cells? Is it my muscles? Or is it like if you go quantum in the field itself of information? When just from my mushroom experience and all the other traumas that we all experience, right?
Yeah.
So then this energy shot through me, and it actually threw me off my chair, and I convulsed, and literally the energy, the convulsion is literally the nervous system not being able to adapt to the amount of energy that wants to come through, and it opened my third eye instantly. And I had to, but from my experience of understanding and trusting and surrendering into the plant medicine, it gave me the opportunity to surrender again, because it brought up a lot of fear, all the things it was butting up against, all my unconditional beliefs, resistance and fears and things like that. And of course, what resists persists. And I see it when we facilitate all the time. People start resisting into that and are not fully letting go to allow it to move, because there's a great saying, what's coming is going. And if we just let it move, then we can go through.
I like that. I've never heard that. What triggered the awakening?
The awakening, it was basically, I think there was an intent behind it, because I was asking the question more. Is there more? Are you going to show me? That was the first thing.
Yeah.
And religiously, without fail, every day I would get up and meditate through my energy centers. For 30 minutes to an hour. I would sit with them.
Got it.
And start to tune in and start to come up against all my blocks and release. I would play with different breathing techniques. Things like that.
So you were in a meditative state when it, boom.
Yeah. Fortunately, I wasn't like
walking down
the local farmers markets or something, like, and it just starts going.
Yeah.
But I was in a meditative state, and then that came out of that. And then from laying there and being this all starting to move, I had a being then come up to me, because clearly I'm open and energy, and worked on my shoulder.
Wow.
And put me in this orange cocoon.
Wow.
To be healed. And all I think was, surrender, guy, surrender. You're not going that, surrender, guy. And it's absolutely as real as this. It is absolutely profound. The orange light, like, and and I'm laying there with my eyes closed, just going, "Holy shit!" But I'd done enough work to
Be ready.
hold space, be ready, and hold space for myself. I hadn't done it through
Now, with your third
different
eye being
tools.
activated, did you have lots of visions instantly, like kind of thing, like perceiving
No,
multidimensional?
no, not initially, not like the plant-based medicine. I've had
Got
that
it.
since
Mm-hmm.
kaleidoscopes. I've even gone down wormholes and things like. But at this point, it was like static on a TV. It was but I could feel the torus. I could feel it pouring out my hands. I could feel it coming
Wow.
in my head. My
Wow.
heart was just like,
Wow.
whoa, it was real,
Wow.
and then you have those experiences, and you're like, what do you do with that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, okay, so you're leaning into something here. All the texts and books, then everything I'm picking up it was just making sense. It was like a
Mm.
knowing. It's like, then for me, it started becoming very easy to filter out information that I didn't really need, because I'm just filling my head with more stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, this is actually about the experiential, and it's a
Mm.
very easy trap to fall into. Let's just fill our heads with more knowledge, more stuff, and sound really profound, and but
That's
are we
funny because it
actually
makes me think
living it?
I just screenshotted um, a quote from Rumi a few hours ago, and I'd never seen it before, and it's the art of knowing is knowing what to ignore. And that's
Huh.
kind of what you're saying, right? I mean, that's powerful. It's like,
That's exactly it, mate. That's exactly it. And all of a sudden, it's so freeing, because you're able to step back a little, and just see your life for everything that has taken you to this moment. It's like, well, what's serving me? What isn't serving me? What is mine? What isn't mine? Have I inherited? Am I living a life based upon somebody else's belief systems?
yeah,
And start to look at it. It's like it gets you back to that authentic you, the real truth, the heart of it all, what truly matters in everything, what we have in here. That's the only thing you're going to take with you when you
yeah,
die, like when you cross the gate of death.
yep,
Everything that's collected through here. And it's like, okay, this is an incredible opportunity to start to declutter even more,
yeah,
to really start to lean in what wants to come through and action that. But of course, even when you have those experiences, you still have to action it. The
yeah,
rubber still has to meet the road.
yeah.
And not long after, it's funny, then my supplement company started falling apart.
Mm,
Different things started happening, because I was resisting the change, because I was so scared of stepping out from that into the unknown to what was calling me forward.
mm.
Like, our accountant ran off with like 60 grand
Wow.
when we were in the middle of um, a manufacturer change and things like that, where it's like, as the volumes get bigger, the money
Cash
just
flow.
goes up and down quicker, and you're just like,
Yep,
what
definitely
you
now.
know and it's like, this is not me,
Yeah,
and me and my business partner were locking horns more and things like that, and it was polarizing. It was just starting to get really messy,
yeah,
and realize it's like, well, are you going to keep pushing and wait till you get run over a T-bar or fuck knows what,
yeah,
and have that, or are you going to be able to look in the mirror, use it as wisdom of what's happened in the past, and you've had these two mind-blowing experiences. Are you going to move in the same direction, or are you going to make change and listen to this? And then, just to make things a bit more trippier, I feel like this is the space to do it. About 3 o'clock in the morning, this is a couple of years later now, where I'm flirting with the idea of leaving the company and stepping out and going, and then my mind comes in, shit, it's going to happen. I know it's going to happen. About 3 o'clock in the morning, mate, I'm lying in bed, and I've already had multiple out of body experiences by this point,
mm-hmm.
just because the energy moves easier and it's starting to become natural. I get woken up by, I don't know what, energetically, and I just get pulled, like I get pulled out of my body. and I'm going. It's like skydiving, but going upwards, not down. And I'm flying through the air at this breakneck speed, and I'm seeing like trees and then sky and then universe and sky, like as if it was layers and layers and layers. And then I get spit out like as if you're like above the clouds, but it was in the universe.
Wow.
And I'm like this, like, oh my God. And I could see all the constellations in the sky and everything. And then I get pulled in, and there's this giant eyeball just looking at me.
Oh, wow.
And I'm there, and it sounds so wild, and it blinked at me, and there was an instant connection that this was my higher self.
Wow.
And I'm staring at myself, and the connection, because it's you, there's a knowing that comes through.
Like
And
a familiarity, right? I mean,
exactly.
yeah.
And it's looking at me, and it's like, stop being a pussy. This is your true nature.
Wow.
What else do you need to know? Like, seriously. And then it sent me straight back down and straight back into the body. And I was like, and I came, like, hit that, just, the classic, like, holy shit.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And I told my wife's been amazing. She's supported me the whole way through.
Yeah.
She's like, yeah, okay, Guy, whatever.
Yeah. Another day in the life of Guy.
Yeah. And it was a huge stepping stone. It's like, yeah. And I stepped away. We came to a mutual agreement, myself, my business partner. And I really want to acknowledge something about faith here for people as well, because the fact of when we decide if we're all in or not. So that year, when we made the agreement to step down and walk away and everything else, I had 1 year up my sleeve that I could afford to pay myself, basically, out of selling the company and live and invest in wanting to bring the work that I do now to the world, the meditation and the retreats and everything else. I didn't know what it was going to look like. I didn't know how it was going to go. But I had enough, I guess, entrepreneurial skills to get things going. And about 6 or 8 weeks before that year ended, I ran out of money. Because the agreement that was made was my business partner was going to pay me every week for 12 months.
Mm-hmm.
But on my own mistake, I had miscalculated it, the date. So I was out by about 2 months in terms of payments. It was actually over a 10 months period, but not 12.
Oh, wow.
So I'd got to this point where I was like, shit, I'm so knee deep and that I felt what I was doing was starting to get traction and things like that. But as you know, any money you make, you put back in, right? Like, and I got to the point and I was like, well, am I going to get a job?
Yeah.
Am I done here? Am I defeated? And it's like, how could I be so committed to giving this everything I got in this way and stuff this up and now get to this point where I'm like 50 meters short of the finish line to get through or something? I was like, you're kidding me. And all the doubt, all the inner critics, that voice, the bullshit that comes with it all starts getting louder because you start going into the fear. And I would get up and I would be with myself every morning and think, no, this is again where the rubber meets the road. This is an opportunity here to sit with the emotions and see what wants to present itself, because it's so easy to impose upon what you think it is. And for about 3 days, I kept going in, show me the way. I'm all in here. And about 3 days later, I had a phone call off my business partner. Hadn't spoke to him for the entire time since he left, right? Pretty much. And it turned out he was selling to a bigger company. He was bringing partners in. And they'd spent the last 6 months trying to get this deal across the line. And they went to sign it. And like literally the last signature on the last page, that one of the last sentences says Guy Lawrence still owns 10% of 180 Nutrition. And they've gone, oh, you never told me you had a silent partner. And he's like, no, it came up. And all of a sudden, this whole deal was going to fall through that they'd spent on, because when I walked away, one wise man, an entrepreneur friend in Switzerland, said, whatever you do, keep 10%. I was like, okay. So my business partner is devastated, because everything was riding on that for him. And then he said, would you be willing to sell the 10% to them? I was like, oh,
yes, I would. It turns out.
It certainly turned. I didn't tell him that. I was like, oh, well, what are they going to offer? So anyway, it turned out they bought the 10% off me more than what the original 40% was sold for.
Yeah.
And that money was in my account within 24 hours.
Wow.
And I was like, and I had them over a barrel. I could have been a right shit, to be honest with you. But no, my business partner, he's got beautiful children, 3 beautiful girls. No, even though we weren't getting on great at the time, there's 8 years of history there. I know who he is as a human.
Yeah.
And it's like, no. And this was like, okay, no, I see a sign when I take it, I'll take it and go through.
Wow.
And
powerful.
Very powerful. And so I guess these points, and hopefully I've made points for the listeners, is that when we do start to really consider what it means to surrender, what it means to commit coming from the heart, and what's possible, we don't really value it unless we are pushed into those corners, into those places. Because for me, it had to show me the man within me to step forward. And I would never value it the way I do if I hadn't had those experiences.
Yeah.
And that's just the beginning. Now we run retreats, and the way it's opened up, I was in front of 155 people over the weekend, leading them through sound and meditation workshop,
Cool.
Yeah.
Wow. Amazing. It's such a great example of, you get what you need when you need it, and just continuing to follow your heart and your highest calling. And of course, you're going to have those moments. I saw another quote the other day. I wish I'd saved it because it was Alan Watts. It was so good. And it was something like, it was something brilliant, as he always is. One of my faves, if not my fave. Like, it always looks like you're not going to make it, but that's the fun of it. Like, that's part of the setup by the universe. It always looks that way, and then those are the moments, like you said, where the rubber meets the road. You're being tested and tried to see what are you made of? How much do you believe? Are you willing to, it's often darkest before the dawn. And do you have enough in you, enough gumption to push through that last, those last yards, those last moments for the breakthrough? And I think that's a recurring pattern that just happens with all of us on this path.
Totally. And I think the subtle trap of it all is like, I feel like I've been very blessed to have such profound experiences like I have. And there's been dozens of them, right, over this period of time. But even what those experiences have allowed me is to bring those lessons to action into everyday life.
Yeah.
And I feel that before we have those experiences, we run away from our problems to lean into those experiences, not to be with our problems, to lean into those experiences, to then bring in to support us as we work through what it is we need to work through, or the lessons. And it's a dance, and the ego can be so slippery on times.
For sure.
that we get caught up in all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I'm curious, as you've sort of walked and succeeded walking and navigated some of these pits along the way, if you will, what are some of the pillars, or sort of, obviously we only have a limited amount of time on this podcast today. So, what are some of the key things that you can leave with the listeners and share with the listeners regarding, how to anchor yourself, the pillars to sort of, I know you talk about 4 pillars in your life.
We talk about 4 pillars, but actually another acronym was coming in for me then that I'd like to share.
Sure, please.
And I'd encourage everyone listeners, just try it on for a week, ideally a month, but a week.
At least a week.
At least a week. And for me, the theme has clearly been starting to get out of my head, more into my heart. Because when we're in our heart, we're in the present moment, and we're not in the future or past or the mind and relinquish the grasp that comes up, right? So we have an acronym called H.E.A.R.T., but with double T, not single T. Now, what H.E.A.R.T. for us represents, which is a way of embodying heart through our daily actions, is, before I give that away, I'm going to say something, because just to hammer on the point, a journalist interviewed me once, Brandon, and he said, I know people that are dickheads and they meditate, but they're still dickheads, right? And I was like, that's a really good point, because our true meditation is what we do with our eyes open through the day, not just our practice.
Sure.
So we support that, right? So the heart is then what we do during the day. So what it represents is H is humility. E is empathy. A, which is the key one, awareness. R, a response ability. T, to trust. And T, truth. So imagine a circumstance comes up in your day. And because we're on such automated patterns, we go through the same patterns consistently, same responses, same knee-jerk reactions. We label people certain ways and we believe it to be true. And then we put in our subconscious and we're just reactionary. Okay, we get triggered. If you spot it, you got it. What is it within me? So what happens if we were able to flip the lens in that moment and then say, actually, I'm going to pause. I can see my reactionary self coming up here. I'm going to pause and just breathe into my heart. Humility. How can I see this with a beginner's mind? How can I look at this differently? Okay. What happens if I'm wrong? Humility. Right. Empathy. Can I have empathy for this moment? Can I have empathy for myself, for always react in a certain way, but actually it's okay and come back? Can I have empathy for the other person? Could there be something deeper going on in their life right now that's causing them to react that way, to give it to me? Coming into the heart. Awareness. What happens if I see this from a different vantage point? Am I able to just see the bigger picture here for a moment? How can I start to look at what is beyond my awareness that I don't know? Responsibility. It is my responsibility how I respond in this moment. Am I going to create a responsibility for something different? The ability to respond differently from the heart. Try it out. Trust speaks for itself. Can I trust in this moment? Can I trust that this is, I got pro-Naira on my shirt.
Trust the mystery.
Trust the mystery. Trust in this moment that is serving my highest good. And it's bringing something to my attention that I would never have seen if this hadn't happened.
Yeah.
Truth. Come back to the truth of it all, which is, for me, the heart, the present moment. What is really true? Is this my perception of truth? Or is this absolute truth? You know, what would be the true outcome? So by embodying those qualities and starting to use them, I have them printed everywhere. I have them on my t-shirts. You can have them on your phone saver, have them on, the mirror, back of the toilet door, car. Constant reminder, that constant metacognition to start bringing you back to the moment. And the more aware we become, the more we can start to step outside ourselves to then really think differently and change the trajectory here. Because we're all guilty of it. We all fall from grace every day.
Yeah. Yeah. I love this because it just gives you a simple tool to check in with, right? Like, hey, am I embodying humility, empathy, awareness, responsibility, trust, and truth? where am I with what's happening? And I think if you're really honest with yourself, in any given situation, and examine those things, and it can't help but bring you back to a strong center where you're seeing things as clearly and as kindly, and as much as that high. It's a way of aligning with that higher self you were so fortunate to get a firsthand, encounter with. That's how your higher self envisions through that lens, right? That giant eye. That's the lens of that same heart, and so when we're actually able to do that, we're aligning with the higher self, I would say, and as a result, having the tools and the power and the energy that the higher self has in that moment, because we're literally one with it.
Yeah, 1000%. Because at the end of the day, we can get caught up in all the glitz, the glamour, the spiritual seeking, the text, the knowledge, all the information, all this stuff, this noise, all these different healing modalities and everything.
Yeah.
But it all comes back to the present moment.
Yeah.
What are we doing in the moment?
Yeah.
How are we changing our actions? Because actions and choices lead to different outcomes, but it can only be done from the doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the other thing that I'm curious to hear from you, obviously you went through some real significant depression, sort of anxiety. It's kind of like, oh, I reached the goal line, and yet here I am still feeling unfulfilled. So for anyone out there who maybe is feeling depressed or anxious, or where you were, obviously you just gave us a great tool for, taking a sort of account, where am I in this moment and how am I relating to the situation at hand? But is there anything else that comes to mind for you to share with anyone experiencing depression and anxiety?
Yeah, a couple of things that have helped me is finding ways to create changes of state as well.
Yeah.
But that's hard when you are, if you're depressed and you're, fortunately I had physical activity. I could lean into something that had been so ingrained in me, whether I felt like it or not.
Yeah.
But we can use the breath. We can literally shake the body. We can hit the body, tap the body, move energy. I would encourage people to start to consider the power of our body if we set up the environment for it.
Mm-hmm.
The body knows exactly what to do. It has the life force to create. It has the life force to heal. It has the life force to regenerate. It's unbelievable, right? And it's all to do with the nervous system and the autonomic nervous system.
Yeah.
And that's why breath work can start to become so powerful.
Yeah.
Having a sound immersion, lay in front of a gong. Like we actually do quite active sound immersions. We don't only do soothing sound, we actually do stimulating sound. So you can actually use stress to heal stress as well. So as you start to consider what things, take cold showers that are stimulating. Connection is huge. Finding your tribe, finding people. If you look at we got the 4 levels of connection: connection to self, connection to others, connection to nature, connection to source. And they kind of have that hierarchy as we develop our connection to self by using these things, getting in the body, getting visceral, getting real, whatever it might be. Do a community something, maybe taekwondo, anything, like just get things moving. Then connection to others, that rapport, having compassion. The level of compassion those people showed me on my plant journey was extremely healing.
Yeah.
And I carried that with me. Being in nature, getting around things. I live by the ocean. It's critical. I connect to Mother Earth every morning. I make myself known in that relationship and give thanks. Finding the pieces of gratitude that we can have in our life and focus on those and nurture on those.
Yeah.
But I think we need something to like fan the flame.
Yeah.
To get us going, to lean into these practices.
Yeah.
And all you need is a little hook.
Yeah.
Once you get a little taste.
Yeah. snowball can start rolling.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Beautifully said. Well,
Yeah.
I know you shared some pretty cool experiences. As we wind down, I always ask for stories of synchronicity or serendipity or a positive paranormal story. And so, like I said, you kind of shared some story time. So I'll let you off the hook. But unless there's something else that you care to share that comes to mind.
Something I care to share that comes to mind. Wow. I really feel we've got to take the step first, and then the way will appear.
Mm-hmm.
I work alongside two other beautiful souls, Petra Brozovic, that lives in Croatia, of all places, and Matt Omo, who lives in Central Coast, which is 6-hour drive away, right?
Mm-hmm.
And by me taking the steps of leaning into following my heart and saying, I don't know how the way is going to go, but I'm going to start doing it anyway and see what starts coming forward and lands. I now work with two beautiful souls. One I met crying on the stairs in Costa Rica, who had her boyfriend had just ditched her when they arrived in Costa Rica, had broke up with her, and she had lost her luggage, and she ended up staying in our apartment with myself and Linda and a couple of other friends. So like this woman's worst day on earth has ended up working alongside me from
Wow.
what she does.
Wow.
Right. And
Amazing.
Matt, who I ended up healing the grief of my passing of my dad, which is so many things I'm going into, but through his sound journeys.
Wow.
And felt this visceral grief actually leave my chest and shoulders.
Wow.
And then became my friend, and now we work alongside each other. I couldn't have planned it. I couldn't have made it up. And we facilitate retreats. I'm going to Bali in June, facilitating a retreat. We're going to Croatia at the end of the year. We're facilitating a retreat. I'm taking my family. I'm kind of just enjoying the ride of it all. And I think if there's one thing is like believe in possibility, believe in synchronicities, believe that things are there waiting for you if we meet it halfway.
Yeah.
But if we stay on the sidelines and don't get our hands dirty, those synchronicities are not going to come through. So, yeah.
Well said, my friend. Well said. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come on and share your story and your wisdom and insights. It's felt, that you're the real deal. You're walking the talk. And what is the best way for those who want to connect with you to do so? Obviously, the podcast and anything else you want to share as far as connecting.
Yeah, the podcast is called Let It In. It's getting popular on YouTube actually, but we're on all the available platforms. Like you, check it out. I have a website, guylawrence.com.au. Catch me through there. And our retreats website is called liveinflow.co as well. And we can be reached through all those channels and the usual socials and stuff.
Amazing.
You'll see me with my kids and in an ice bath.
Nice. Very cool. Well, Guy, thank you so much again, my friend, for taking the time to come on. And I do have one final question for you. It is my cliche closer, and it is this. In 60 seconds or less, what is the meaning of life according to Guy Lawrence?
Oh, the meaning of life is to let love in. I really think it is. To don't be fearful of an open heart.
Yeah.
And to live from the heart, action from the heart, speak from the heart, listen from the heart. We live in such a technological age now, which I know, and as humans are being challenged to keep up with it.
Yeah.
But truly, I think the essence of us all, behind all the traumas, all the pains, all the noise, is love. And if we let it in and start to work with that relationship, then it really embodies us to live life more present, more in the moment.
Well said, my friend. You're doing it, and such a great example to all of us. I appreciate you, and I know everyone listening does as well. And thank all of you out there for tuning in your beautiful brainwaves and incredible heart into another episode. Until next time, journey well.
Thank you, Brandon.